When I was a kid, my father was a monster. Right from the trailer, as a player, I knew that Papo Yo was going to be a game like no other. It would end up being the type of game that would make me question myself, why I play games, and made me reevaluate how I play them. The deeper meaning behind Papo Yo is hidden subliminally throughout gameplay, through cutscenes, and through artifacts in the game, for the players to find and then use. Through the art of escapism, you play as an abused child, Kiko, trying to cope with the trauma of having an abusive, alcoholic father. This hit home for me on a personal level. I found myself heavily relating to the boy in the game and understanding the mind of make-believe in order to cope with the monstrosity that is bred through alcoholism and abuse from a parental figure. Not only that, but Papo Yo also explores creativity in the game's scene, and the possibilities that can be created is like a puzzle, with each piece working together to get you to the next area. Whether it's pulling, pushing, lifting, or carrying, all of these things come together on the map. Many times I found myself astounded when the houses would come to life through cardboard boxes or through wind-up as if on the side of a music box. How chalk lines created magic doors and invisible ropes revealed hidden secrets and walls. The possibilities were truly endless. This was all, of course, symbolic of the lack of control Kiko surely felt in his life being under the wrath of his manipulative father. Everything about the dreamscape we play in feels safe and magical. That is until the monster comes. The monster is pink, fat, lazy, and sports one horn, the whole symbolizing his father and his anger solidified. Throughout the experience, there are a few times where normal activities can be done with the monster. For example, playing a seemingly harmless soccer game. But then as it continues, the monster will get angry, and that's when violence ensues. Paired with this is yet another piece that makes this impactful in its own way, and that's through the music and soundtrack, which through each level amplifies the scenes of the game. The game in itself is a puzzle platformer, which Kiko has to maneuver around to get to different places. Papo Yo utilizes non-violent problem solving, and never at any point in the game do you try to kill or harm the monster. This is important to show in a game, with meaning as deep as this, showing that violence is not always the answer, and violence does not always stop greater violence. It should also be noted that at no point in the story is Kiko alone. He has Lula, who could teleport to different switches, and a toy robot who helps him fly, as player companions. Not only that, but he also completes this adventure with his sister, who draws those chalk shapes and gears on the wall that the player can interact with. Not only that, but other gameplay mechanics include the ability to be able to run, jump, climb, pick up frogs, pick up fruit, and it happens that whenever the monster eats the frogs, which make him rage out, the rotten fruits are the only thing that Kiko can use to make him calm down. There are platforms that he can jump from to get to places and gates that he can open. These are all parts of things that he can use. He can pick up soccer balls and throw them. For example, when him and Monster play the soccer game. Or he can hold the frogs and actually carry them and run around with them. He also can pick up the frogs and smash them against the wall if he wanted. But that's only up to the player. There are also little dolls around the map that Kiko can choose to collect. These are not essential to the game, but for players who like to collect, these are definitely a fun thing to see. There are also ladders in the game that the player can choose to climb up. Papo Yo is full of gameplay mechanics and various things the player can do. There is never a boring moment. Another very important part of the story are the frogs. Frogs became a very important symbolic figure. When I first began, I noticed them hopping around, and I immediately picked one up and carried it around for as long as the game would let me. I thought they were relatively harmless creatures, and thought they were actually very adorable. But as I continued, I realized that there was a deeper meaning behind them. Whenever Monster gets a hold of these very cute frogs, he would consume them, and he would go from lazy and docile to a raging beast that Kiko had to run from. Understanding that the frog symbolized his father's alcoholism problem is not only paramount, but it opens the player's eyes to the impact of Kiko's and the monster's relationship. The dreamscape itself transforms when this happens and becomes a nightmare for the player and Kiko. Then we have to figure out how to maneuver and function with the monster's fits of rage while trying to stay safe. As the game continues, that changes, and even though the monster is so violent and destructive, the goal of the game is to find a shaman who can, quote-unquote, cure him, which I'm sure symbolizes Kiko's hopes for his father getting better and eventually having a relationship with him. As you take this journey throughout the game, you find out in the end that there is no shaman and that the true magic is being able to accept that you cannot change your father, but you can change how you accept the situation you're in and how you handle your father's behavior. And eventually, Kiko does realize that. At the very end, he takes a portal back to his own reality, no longer needing the dream world to escape. This game is different in the way that, unlike other games, there was no happy ending. There was no tying everything up neatly in a bow. There was no magical cure for the monster that was his father. In the end, it was all about the acceptance of what he can control and being able to move on with his own life. And I believe this is also shown in Kiko's composure, the soundtrack, and in the visuals of the game. As the game first started, Kiko was seen looking very distraught, in a suit, and walking around hunched over. But as the game continues, he embraces who he really is, wears paint of his people, and has a more confident stance, and walks with pride. The visuals of the game become more beautiful and vibrant, as well the soundtrack becomes more confident and even showcases the language of his people. Kiko not only learned to accept his situation with his father, but learned to accept who he is as an individual. He realized that he is not what his father has become, and that he can choose his own path, separate, and he didn't need a dream world to escape. Vander Caballero, the creator of this game, wanted to help people who have been through similar situations get through it, and also share his own experience. And I believe this is exactly what he wanted them to get out of it. Kiko's journey is not only a story of inspiration, but it's also Caballero's own story, having been through, as well as his siblings, the very same situations displayed in the game. This game is impactful in the way it tells the story from the mind and in the eyes of a child, while keeping challenging and ever-evolving gameplay maneuvers. Papo Yo was rich, not only in its game mechanics, visuals, and wonderful soundtrack, but it also hit home and made me feel and be able to relate more than I ever thought I would in a puzzle platforming game. It's a game I would definitely recommend, and I'm very pleased to have played it. Thank you.